Hey guys, Radioactive Beaver here with Advanced Vector. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. When I first created the channel, I had every intention of doing more than just game videos, and recently I had an opportunity to uh, do something a little different. So today we're going to be creating my streaming slash rendering rig. I'm taking components from my old gaming PC, kind of sprucing it up a bit, and we're going to be delving into that. So the basis for what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be using this Supermicro server motherboard. I'll have the link to the model and whatnot in the bottom of this video. But yeah, so this is it's a server class board, dual processors. Actually, the board that I had before that unfortunately failed on me, or I'd probably still be using it, was the EVGA SR2 motherboard. So this is a sweet, sweet motherboard. I'm super disappointed that it crapped out on me. To be completely honest, I'm not really sure what's wrong with it. It's possible that maybe one of these capacitors failed or something like that. Um, but anyways, so when I first bought this, I bought it in like 2012. I got it on sale on Newegg, and it was an awesome, awesome rig until earlier last year, and I had to build a new one that I'm currently using. So, anyways, I'm kind of taking the parts out of this. It's for all intents and purposes like a server motherboard as well. So it uses dual Xeon processors, that server RAM, and some other things like that. And so we're going to be utilizing a lot of the same components out of that old rig. I'm just purchased that Supermicro motherboard on eBay. It cost me about $100. So overall, for the power that I'm getting out of it, it's going to be super, super great. It doesn't have a lot of the features that most consumer level motherboards will have. Um, but for what we're going to be doing, it's going to be fine. Really, we just need that CPU power so that I can render out my videos and I don't have to take up that time on my gaming rig. Part of the problem that I'm running into right now is after I record a video or two, my gaming rig gets tied up for several hours as it's rendering those videos in, and so I'm unable to do something or anything on my computer really. And so my plan with this was to get it up, get it running. It's got the dual procs as opposed to the single proc that I have in my current rig, and so it should be able to chomp through those renders relatively quickly. And then on top of that, I ended up picking up um, if you guys can see that, an Elgato HD60 Pro capture card. So this is going to be going into this rig as well. So let's take a look at what we got here. Let me put some of this stuff back to the side. I'm going to adjust the camera to kind of show the case and stuff that I'm using, and then we'll go over some of the parts. BRBs. Alright guys, so here we are. I got that motherboard mounted into this chassis. I can't remember exactly what model the chassis is, but we'll demo the chassis and kind of the other stuff on the outside once we get the computer built. So kind of to start off here, we'll talk a little bit about what I'm going to be putting in this thing. To start, I have a pair of Xeon L52 or no 5520s. Those are quad-core processors that do support hyper-threading. So really, the computer is seeing 16 cores, and those are running at 2.26 gigahertz, I believe. Not only that, I have a set of 4 8-gigabyte sticks of RAM for 32, and then I'm going to be filling in the rest with, I've got 6 4-gigabyte sticks of RAM that I'll be incrementally filling up, which would give us about 56 gigs of RAM total. At some point in the future, I may bump those 4 gigs back up to 8 so that I've got nothing but 8s in here. But, you know, I don't know. For what I'm doing, I think 56 gigs of RAM is going to be plenty, especially combined with the horsepower of the 2 processors. One thing that I may do in the future is this particular motherboard does support the 5600 series Xeons, which do have some hex cores. So in the future, as the channel starts doing better and stuff, and I can get some funding, I definitely may upgrade those processors to some hex cores to help render out those videos a little quicker. So, anyways, one of the things that I initially saw about this board that I really liked was I don't know if you can quite tell, but these two ports right here are actually internal USB ports. So for a long time I've wanted to make my own Arduino fan controller. I've seen some guys do it online, and it seems like a pretty fun, pretty cool project. So the cool thing about that is I could mount a little Arduino in this case somewhere. You can see there's plenty of space throughout this this bay here. And instead of having to try to route a USB from external to internal, I can just plug it into one of these little ports right here, and I should be able to directly control my fans and stuff from in the computer itself. So that should be a fun project for the future, maybe. So anyway, so let's talk about peripherals that I'm going to be putting in here. So to start off, graphically, I have two options. I'm not sure exactly which direction I want to go for sure, but I have this older EVGA GTX 480. This was actually top of the line card when I bought it, and I built that old rig with that EVGA SR2 motherboard, and it served me well. As far as I know, it's still functioning perfectly great. For connections, we've got the dual DVI and then the mini HDMI. So this is definitely a good option. I'm not sure exactly how graphically intense I'll need this, though. I'm thinking that I'll probably mostly access this via remote desktop. So the other thing that I'm looking at doing, and a lot of this depends on the BIOS compatibility. I haven't done some research into what kind of RAID controller, if any, this thing has built on board, but I have this Adaptec RAID controller. I do need to get a high profile bracket for it, but for now there's no reason I couldn't just slip it into one of these slots and let it sit. And then that, of course, comes with your 4-port breakout cable. So so that's an option right there. This Adaptec card, they're really nice cards. I like them. They're good RAID cards. They're nice and fast. It would be nice if I can't remember exactly what model. I believe this is the 5404, I believe. I think they do have another one that actually can support up to 8 drives, but I'm thinking for this that should be fine. I'm going to be rolling probably 4 1TB drives just for generic storage and stuff, probably in a RAID 5. So anyways, again, we'll have to see. I'm not sure. A lot of these server motherboards actually have some RAID capabilities built into them, so we'll have to see. I haven't researched that out yet. The other thing, like I mentioned earlier, is we will be putting our Gato capture card in here, our Elgato, excuse me, capture card in here. So that should be pretty good. I've actually never used one of these before, so I'm excited to see how it works, and I'm hoping that in the future I'll be able to maybe stream some footage. That new Wii Switch that new Nintendo Switch that's coming out. The Zelda game looked pretty sweet. Unfortunately, I didn't get that pre-ordered, but you know, it is what it is. So then there's one last thing. I actually have it in another one of my servers right now, but I'm going to be pulling it out and putting it into this bad boy to complete this build. Is I have a 10 gigabit NIC. So it's a it's a 10 gig NIC. The reason that I want that is I actually do have a 10 gig switch. I've got a Quanta LB4M here in my my home network, and I actually have another one of those NICs in my current gaming PC. So what I'm thinking is that these two PCs will be connected directly via that 10 gigabit per second line, and that'll give us all of the throughput that we need so that I can write files to this thing, pull files off, upload them online, and it shouldn't be that hard to move files back and forth between those computers. You know, probably run a share drive off of this computer of some kind. So anyways, that's kind of the basics of what we're going to do. A lot of what I want to accomplish with this build, and something that I've been bad about in the past, is every time I do a machine, I have every intention of doing like perfect, awesome cable management, making everything look nice and smooth and slick, and I never end up having the patience for it. So that's kind of what I want to do. So I'm going to get started. I'm going to get some components in here. Actually, really quick, we'll talk about some of the other things that I have that are going to be going in here. So I do have two of these. Some of you may recognize these heat sinks. These are the Evo 212. Not Evo. Is it Hypertech? Anyways, they're made by Cooler Master. I think they are Evo. Evo 212 Hypercool heatsink. So these have been really awesome. When I had these on the EVGA motherboard, I was actually able to overclock those 2.26 Xeons to, I think I had them running about 2.7, 2.9. They were stable as can be, never had heating issues or anything. So if you're looking for an air-cooled solution, I definitely recommend those. We'll see if I can move the camera here a little bit. So you can see I've got the 5 1/4 inch bays up here. So kind of just to go over what I've got, I've actually got two CD DVD combo drives and then one Blu-ray drive. And then below that, actually, with all these wires coming out of it, is a fan controller. So lots of good stuff. This case has a lot of opportunity for build. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to start putting some of these components in here, kind of running some wires and stuff. And when I've made a little progress, I'll bring you guys in, and we can talk a little bit more about what I got going on. All right, guys, bringing you back in for a second here. I thought really quickly, for anyone who may be watching this video to build a PC for the first time or just reference, but I wanted to talk about your thermal paste, or thermal compound, whatever it is you want to call it. Let me see if I can get the camera to focus in on this. Not wanting to focus very good. But anyway, so in the past I've been a huge Arctic Silver fan. Recently I have kind of changed and started using Antec, their Antec Formula 6 nano diamond thermal compound, and I really like it a lot. Out at the data center where I work, it's what we use exclusively, and it's pretty awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the camera off here really quick, just kind of show you. So I've seen guys do all kinds of crazy stuff, as far as like covering the whole CPU with a pretty thick layer and other stuff, and more isn't always better. You want to get just that right amount. So kind of just a little bit smaller than a pea size is what I find works good. Just stick it right in the center. You're going to put that heatsink directly on top of there, and believe it or not, as time goes on, that stuff will spread out evenly across the whole CPU. So that's why they say when you first put thermal compound on there, it takes a day or two to really sink in and fully spread out over the whole face of the CPU. But you'll find that if you do this in about that size, and I did about the same size on the other one, that when you take off your heatsink a little later, that it will indeed actually it will be covering the whole face of your CPU. And then the other thing to do is always, of course, install some kind of a monitoring tool, your CPU temp, to keep an eye on that for future stuff. So anyways, just a little bit of a tip there on what I like to do. I'm sure I'll get some guys in the comments that are like, oh no, that's not how you do it. This is just what I've done in my experience, replacing a lot of CPUs out of the data center that I work at, and this seems to have worked very well in the past. So just a little tidbit. Anyways, I'm going to continue on mounting the heat sinks and whatnot, and then probably start looking at some cable management. I like to put the heat sinks on first. They are kind of bulky in the way, but sometimes I've noticed that the heat sinks can get in the way of where you want to run cables and stuff, or you'll run a cable and then go to put the heat sink on later, and you'll have issues. So that's why I like to put those on first. Definitely everyone has their own way of doing things for sure, but when doing a build like this, like I said, I'm trying to be extra cautious, extra careful about how I build this out and lay it out. I want it to look relatively nice. You know, is it ever going to be one of those professional looking liquid cooled rigid tube deals? Not yet. You know, someday I'd like to do a build like that. Maybe we will get the opportunity to do that on the channel at a future point. But anyways, I'm going to get back to it, and I'll bring you guys in if something crosses my mind. Alright guys, so here we are. We can see I got those two heat sinks installed. I actually had to modify the bases a little bit. Before, the bases of these heat sinks, you can see they have like a little bracket down here, and that's actually what lays across the copper and aluminum block that sits on the CPU to hold it in place. Anyway, it had these springs on there, and if I can get that to focus, but anyway, so it's just a little spring, and it was causing too much tension, so the screws were not able to reach the mounting plate for the heat sinks. It's actually really bad glare on there. I apologize for that. So anyways, little things like that do tend to happen sometimes when you're building PCs. It's just kind of the way the world works. So no big deal. But anyways, so I'm going to start looking at how I'm going to route the power through here. As you can see, kind of down here, oops, if we look over here, this is where I've got my power supply, and I've got some of the cables that are bundled up in there. So I'm going to need both of these to feed the two CPU powers. So we have one right here, and then there's actually one that's kind of up here underneath and behind the other heatsink there. So you can see it there. So both of those are 8-pin PCI Express. It's standard with these dual processor boards. Each processor, of course, like a single board, needs its own power source. So, anyways, I didn't cover it before, but in case you saw, for the power supply on this bad boy, I do have an OCZ Fatality 1000 watt PSU. I guess I would say hybrid modular. So definitely enough horsepower to run whatever we want to run in these, as far as CPUs, as well as a good array of those hard drives. As I mentioned, we'll probably definitely have several solid state drives, and then at least 4 of those 1 terabytes. So anyways, I'm gonna start routing this power here. I'm gonna have to get the case up and kind of work around the back. I guess really briefly, let me put these in here for safekeeping. I can kind of show you what I'm dealing with on the back side of this case. Let me try to move this without knocking anything off here. Alright, so as you can kind of see here, let me adjust the camera a bit. We do have this nice cable management system here in the back. We can see the back of the motherboard here and here, and then we have all these entry and exit holes. Down here below, we have these 2 main ones. I'll probably bring those main cords out and then up to where they need to go. And I'm going to do my best to utilize the small cable management, I don't know, brackets or whatever they are, that they have built into this case. So definitely pretty good opportunity for some cable management. So over here we can see kind of the jumble and mess of cords that are just default to the case. On the top of this case, we've got fan controller, USB ports, of course a headphone microphone, and then on the front we have just a normal power and reset button. So good stuff. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and get started on routing some of these cables, and I'll bring you guys in to take a look at the backside when I get most of them run. Alright guys, so I got it all cabled up. for the most part. There's a few things I need to do. If you can see up here, I have this ugly thing. I didn't have a SATA cable long enough to reach up into my CD DVD drives. So I've got this coming up to just one of them so that I have that capability to install Windows and whatnot. I think I have Windows on the USB, but in any case, I'm going to order some longer SATA cables to reach up here. I also need to order some more SATA cables to go from our motherboard to the hard drive. So I don't actually have the 1 terabytes in here. Again, if we remember from before, I actually have the low profile bracket for this card, so it's only, you know, sticks out to about here, where I need the full-sized bracket to fit into my PCI Express slot there. So I'm going to get that on order. And actually, I think I only have 3 1 terabytes right now, so I'll probably go ahead and order one more of those and get those in and get those going. But basically, the guts are here. Right now, I've got 2 solid-state drives and then a 2.5 terabyte drive that I kind of scavenged, and so we'll be using those for now. Anyway, so other than that, as you can see down here, I've got the Elgato card. I decided against doing the video card simply because I would not have enough PCI Express slots. As we can see here, I've only got just this one lane left right here next to the Elgato card, and then one more, and I'm going to need one of those for the 10 gig NIC and the other one for that RAID card I just showed you. So it shouldn't be a big deal. This motherboard does have an onboard VGA display, and like I mentioned before, for the most part, this is probably going to be a headless unit, and I'll just remote desktop into it to get the rendering processes and stuff going. So anyways, guys, basically we're at the point where I can fire it up. I did test to post a little bit earlier when I first connected it to make sure there wouldn't be any issues there, and since then I've gone ahead and connected up the rest of the peripherals, so we should be good to go. I'm going to go ahead and flip the power switch on, and interestingly enough, on this motherboard there were not any LED indicators, so I did connect the power button and stuff up front, so hopefully that works. I haven't tried it. As we can see, my 2 top exhaust fans did turn on there as soon as I gave the unit power, so I'm guessing it's doing its boot up process, and in a second here we should see some footage from the post. And actually, while I'm waiting here, let me go ahead and grab just a wired keyboard here, and we'll utilize one of these internal USBs to make sure that we are getting a good connection. So right there, I don't know if you guys just heard that. It seems like the machine did post correctly, and I'm hoping to get video here any second out of my monitor that I'm looking at. I'll pan you guys over to that if it kicks on. Now let me try switching the input here. Oh, alright, perfect. So let me just Control-Alt-Delete that really quick, and then I'll bring you guys over and up to our monitor here. So I apologize in advance for the poor quality, and hopefully you guys can still hear me. I'm talking behind the mic now, so this thing again should be posting here pretty quick. Alright, sweet. Let's go ahead and hit delete so we can get into setup, and we'll check our BIOS systems. Alright, we can see that we have 49,000 megabytes of RAM, which is right. We should have about 48 gigs, so That's good. And actually, let me just see if this helps. Uh, I guess it doesn't make much difference. So, anyways, we can see that we're definitely up and running. As I'm looking at this stuff here, everything looks good still. You guys probably can't see it on the monitor. It doesn't look like, but it is showing that we have both of our physical CPUs and then the 16 logical cores. Again, we have that 49,000 megabytes in system memory, which is exactly what we want for what I installed. Looks like we have some clock, maybe some overclock capability here. I'm not super worried about overclocking this thing. Don't want to stress those CPUs any more than necessary. But other than that, everything looks pretty decent. Let's take a look and see if it detected our hard drive. So it did. Again, as you can see, here I've got the Western Digital 2.5 terabyte. I have an OCZ Agility that's 60 gig, and then an OCZ ARC 100 that is 140 gigs, or 240, excuse me. So that's pretty cool. So let's change this up a little bit, and I want to boot off of that 240. The reason being it's newer. So this 60 gig, in the past I've had trouble with it. I actually think it's failing. So for now I'm just going to use that as a scratch drive, just for non-important information, you know, maybe writing raw footage to whatnot. But CD, okay, so there our one CD DVD combo drive does show up. We don't have any USB drives on here. We shouldn't have any other devices. So boot looks good. Oops. Security, we don't care about security. Boot features, and all this stuff is pretty generic. So anyways, the point is we've got our thing going here. So I gotta actually locate an installation disk or USB installer or something like that. So I'm gonna go ahead and track that down and get started on the install, and I'll bring you guys back in when we get to that point. Alright guys, here we can see I've got it going. You can see I'm on the Windows 7 login screen here. Kind of take a purview of just this case in general. It's a pretty slick case, so we can see again I've got those three or I should say these two DVD CD combos, and then I've got my Blu-ray drive up here. This is actually that fan controller. I didn't end up hooking it up because I thought it was cool when I first built this machine, but I didn't end up using it very much. And then we've got the lighted fan down here, and I actually have a blue one above that red one to kind of help offset the red. Coming over to the side just to kind of preview, we can see that the quick release on the 5 1/4 inch drives, and then we've got our array of hard drive bays here. And then this is kind of what we've seen before, just the inside of the case. Again, we've got those big, I think they're 120, no, not 120, 240 millimeter fans up top here that actually came with the case, and the finished product. Definitely going to be ordering some more SATA cables so I can connect these other CD drives up, and I really want to replace this nasty looking orange one. I need to get some longer ones so that I can feed it around through the cable management in the back. I did end up putting in, let's see if you can see here. Now, I don't think you can see it because it's too dark, but basically this card right here is that Quadro that I had, that NVIDIA Quadro, and then of course we've got the Elgato gaming card right above it. I decided I didn't think I could fit the GTX 480 since it's a double wide card, so that leaves me with one more PCI Express lane down here that I can utilize for that 10 gig NIC when I pull it out of the server that I have over here, just to give you guys kind of a quick view of that so we can see here's the front of my server rack. And so anyways, I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it wasn't super exciting. The build out is pretty sweet. I think I might do another video that kind of demonstrates the software that I use and how I render these videos for anyone who's interested in maybe starting up a YouTube channel themselves. So I've obviously spent a little bit of money in this hardware-wise, but you know, you don't have to. If you've got a decent gaming rig, there's software out there that you can use to record your game footage. Or even stream it. You don't have to have the streaming hardware. It can all be done via software. You know, of course, it's always better to have that hardware encoder, but it's all good. To be honest, I haven't used a hardware encoder yet, so I'm definitely really excited to get into that and see how it does. So again, thanks for watching the video. If you like the video, hit that thumbs up button. If you haven't already, please subscribe. Still looking to grow that channel. This thing is getting exciting as we get into more areas of technology. So I'm hoping to bring more technological videos to you like this. Definitely I'll keep the game footage coming, but anyways, until our next build, we'll see you later, folks.